You guys were harsh. No S Pen support is a blow, 4400 mAh battery is a joke. Where's the S Pen? I hate what they did to the camera, disappointed. Something about some crypto that I need to delete. No S Pen, no periscope lens, no bigger battery, no buy. Well, I've had this for a few days now, and I want to tell you what I think. So there. By the way, this isn't my house, I wish. I'm actually at this beautiful country estate just outside the Goodwood Festival of Speed. I'm here with Porsche, some gorgeous old classic Targas here actually. In fact, before I start waffling on in this video, let me just take a few pictures with this of those very pretty cars over there. Come on. I mean, come on, regardless of whether you're actually going to spend $2,000 on this and whatever you may think of foldable phones, the Fold 7 is a damn good looking phone, particularly in this blue shadow. Also, here's me with a very inconspicuous Insta360 camera sticking out my backpack as I do a little side-by-side testing the cameras of the Flip 7 and the Fold 7. Obviously, these aren't really going up against each other as the Fold 7's nearly twice as expensive, although you can see the benefit of having that 3x optical lens and also the 200 megapixel main camera on the Fold 7 over the Flip 7. Particularly for longer range zoom, it does make a difference. To be honest, the main compromise now with the Fold 7's camera is just that longer range zoom. Otherwise, it's a pretty great setup. I mean, we've got the same 200 megapixel camera as the Ultra, as the Edge. We have a new sensor for the ultra wide, and with the ISP and the new Snapdragon chip, together with some software tweaks with One UI 8, I reckon this is the first time on a Samsung Galaxy Fold that I've actually been excited to use the camera. Until now, it's always just felt like the camera side of things have let the Folds down. And to give you a little taste of how it compares with last year's Fold 6 with that 50 megapixel main camera, while it isn't a night and day difference, you can definitely tell there is more texture, the dynamic range is improved. The Fold 7 is a definite step up, and I think this ties into the larger point of some of the main compromises, some of the main limitations of going for a Fold. Except for the price, of course, that still remains. The design, the size, the thickness, the weight, camera quality, the crease. For the first time in 7 generations, Fold 7, it feels like they've got it right. Does that mean it's perfect? Absolutely not. It is disappointing to see that they haven't done anything to the battery life or the charging, but also it is disappointing that we've lost support for the S Pen. Removing the digitizer layer so they can make the screen thinner, that's the reasoning, and also apparently consumer feedback that not that many people use the S Pen with the Fold, because remember that it was an optional extra, you had to pay for it. Also, you couldn't, store it anywhere in the phone like you can with the S25 Ultra, although you could get S Pen cases where you could keep it. And obviously you had the more pronounced crease on the older models that you had to contend with while drawing over it. So the S Pen situation on the Fold wasn't perfect, but it was a unique selling point. It did make the Fold stand out, and that's now gone. And there is an expectation that each generation of device should get better in every way, not take a step backwards. And if we've got battery charging staying the same, the S Pen removal being a downgrade, that's disappointing, especially when the price is the same. $2,000. It's very expensive, and it still only gets you 256 gigs of storage. If you want more, which you probably do because you're buying a Fold, because you're a, professional, hardworking, super multitasking, content consumery person, and maybe putting on the business so you can afford it, you probably want to get 512. That will last you longer. It is disappointing that's not the standard. The good news is if you do buy this during the pre-order period, they will double it for free. And if you do fancy checking that out, I will leave links in the description below. So yeah, it is not perfect, but then nothing is. Well, except me, of course. But you know what? When I went back to the Fold 6, literally last year's phone, the difference is staggering. Which on the one hand is very impressive, excellent work, but on the other hand, we've already had, at least in Europe and Asia and other markets, some terrific other foldable phones. Maybe less so of that one. No, I do like a Pixel Fold, and there's a new one coming out soon, so I'm excited to try that. But we already have a pretty good range of Folds that we can choose from. Although saying that, availability here in the UK is a little bit iffy as well. The Oppo Find N5, which was my favorite, I don't think is actually coming out in Europe. I think it's China only now. The Magic V5 though, this is getting a global launch and it's probably the one to beat, although I know a lot of people have issues with that very chunky camera module. So Samsung is playing catch up to a lot of these great alternatives, but particularly for my North American friends, you just can't buy those, or there's no network support if you import one. So having Samsung finally catch up in the hardware department really is good news for everyone. And it means if you do have very, very deep pockets and you think you can take advantage of this lovely big screen, this 8-inch tablet screen, which is 11% larger than last year, then now finally, you have a really good option. So by this point, you've probably already seen a whole bunch of reviews of the Fold 7. You know the deal here. The main headline upgrade, of course, is this design. It's 26% thinner than last year's Fold 6. That is a massive gen-on-gen upgrade. It's also now lighter than an S25 Ultra, which is ridiculous. We have tougher glass, a tougher frame, a slimmer, tougher hinge, although the same IP48 dust and water resistance. The cover screen is now bigger. It's 5mm wider and also a 21:9 aspect ratio now, which makes this so much more comfortable to use. And actually, this is true. When I set this up a few days ago, I started, installing my apps, taking photos, using it, and logging into everything, just using it. I genuinely forgot about the tablet screen on the inside, that I could unfold it. About 2 or 3 hours in, I was like, oh wait, oh yeah. This isn't sponsored by Samsung, this isn't me just kissing their asses for the sake of it. It's because we've been so used to these remote control-y, very narrow, awkward to type on cover screens of previous Folds, but with this wider cover screen and also the significantly reduced size, weight, and all that, I was just using this like a regular phone, which I must admit is very impressive. I forgot I was holding and using a foldable. My one issue with the design is that it is a bit of a wobbler, even more so than last year, which is not ideal. It's better when you open it up. It doesn't rattle around unless you really press in the corner. General use, it stays nice and still, reasonably so, but in the corner, it does move a little bit. The solution to that, however, is just to pop your phone facing down, although be careful not to scratch the screen. But elsewhere, they have switched out the under-screen camera of the main tablet screen, which was a pretty terrible 4-megapixel camera with a weird shimmery pattern where the pixels were trying to hide it when you weren't using it. They've now switched it out with a regular, higher quality 10-megapixel camera, which also has a significantly wider field of view. Initially, I wasn't convinced that that was a good move. I kind of missed that old under-screen camera because I barely use this camera. If I'm going to do a selfie or a video call, I'll probably use the front camera selfie, or the whole point of a Fold is that you can make use of the main cameras on the back for your selfies and all that stuff. And I quite liked having a full screen without that little punch out there, but the quality is significantly better. It is a noticeably wider field of view, so it is much more usable as a camera. So actually, I've changed my mind. I think this is the better solution. And I also put it to you guys on Instagram, and it seems like the majority also wanted the higher quality camera than the under display. So I think overall, we can count that as an upgrade. I also really do want to highlight this crease, because when you have a Fold, more so than a Flip, because you're more likely to, put your finger over both sides of the screen. With a Flip, generally I'd say you're on the bottom half, so it's less likely that your finger's going over it. But hopefully that gives you an idea of the difference of the depth of the crease. That is a significant upgrade to the general usability of the Fold, and versus some of the rivals, very similar to the Magic V5. Maybe less. Maybe the Fold 7 is even better, actually, in terms of the sort of depth of the crease. If I bring in let's do the Oppo Find N5 versus the Fold 7. Fold 7 is better. There's actually more of a crease on the Oppo. So Samsung's done a really good job there, and I don't think they've highlighted that enough of improving the crease. Is that enough reason to convince you to buy one if you weren't already thinking about it? Probably not, but it does significantly improve the just everyday usability of this. We also, of course, have a new chip, courtesy of the Snapdragon 8 Elite, and this is the tuned 4 Galaxy version. And versus last year's Fold 6 with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, in the very demanding 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme stress test, the Fold 7 was about 25% faster, and surprisingly, despite the significantly thinner frame and the better performance, it actually slightly improved on the stability there, 51.7%. They both used the same amount of battery life during the test, but the Fold 7 was also 2 degrees cooler at its peak temperature. So it's significantly faster, the stability, the throttling is about on par, if not slightly better. It runs a tiny bit cooler, and it uses about the same amount of battery, despite being 26% thinner. Altogether, I would say that is a win for the Fold 7. So we have the same battery size, but then the new chip is more efficient. They've also optimized the software, so Samsung's always keen to say, well, you'll probably get a little bit extra life out of it, even though it's the same battery. Well, that wasn't quite my experience. As I say, in that 3D Mark test, they both used the same amount of battery, but then charging them both back up to 100 and then letting them stream YouTube for 12 hours, the Fold 6 had 5 percentage points more battery left than the Fold 7. Probably that's the biggest issue we still have with the Fold. It will still get you through a full day. It's not bad by any stretch, but compared to some of the rivals, like take the Magic V5, this has an almost identical frame in terms of thickness and weight and all that. This has a 5820 mAh battery with 66 watt charging. This has a 4400 mAh battery with 25 watt wired charging. That is crazy how different that is. And really it comes down to the fact that the Chinese manufacturers use silicon carbon batteries, which the likes of Samsung, Apple, Google just don't seem to be on board with yet. Right now they just aren't entirely confident in the longevity, the long-term durability of the batteries. And you know what? Safety does come first. Obviously we saw what happened with the Samsung Note 7, so naturally they're going to be quite cautious. But all that's kind of academic. If you can afford one of these and you are going to buy one, and let's say you have access to more than just the Fold, you're going to want the one that has the much longer battery and the much faster charging. So in that area, the Fold 7 definitely has room for improvement. And of course, being a foldable phone, you can fold it. So you can use it in flex mode like this. I've got it as a bit of a tripod so I can film myself 4K 60 with the ultra-wide lens right now. It's actually very loud here in Leicester Square. It's not Leicester Square, Trafalgar Square. I even live here, I should know that. But if I do the voice enhancer thing afterwards, hopefully this makes it, sound reasonable. Also, definitely recommend enabling log video. By default, it's only accessible in the Pro video mode, but in the settings, you can change it to regular video as well. And I tend to shoot pretty much all my videos on Samsung devices in log now because it's just one press to apply the color corrector, or you can add your own LUTs afterwards, and it just gives you better looking videos. And just the sheer variety of camera features, like being able to press on your video and it goes into an instant slow motion. You can shoot it up to 8K 30, you've got 4K 60 across all the lenses, front and back, and you can smoothly transition between them. Samsung's camera software has come a long way over the last few years. And in fact, this is one of the first phones to ship with Android 16, and as usual, they offer a class-leading 7 years of OS updates, and that's with Samsung's One UI 8.0 on top, which so far doesn't look vastly different, but it does offer a few neat features. For example, you can use Circle to search while playing a game. Gemini Live is super helpful, and you can actually use the camera and then ask it questions. What kind of cat is this?
That looks like a Siberian cat to me. They're known for their thick, fluffy fur, which that cat definitely has.
And for the first time, you can now share your screen with Gemini. What can you see?
I can see your phone's home screen. It's got a bunch of app icons, a Google search bar, and a calendar widget showing it's July 12th. The weather app shows it's 25 degrees in London.
What can you see in this picture?
I see a selfie of you in front of 3 large tents. There's a red car on the left and a dark blue one on the right.
So I've only had a week or so with the Fold 7. I need to spend more time with this, and I'll come back with a long-term review to see how I'm getting on. But so far, even though there's definitely room for improvement, I'm really enjoying using it. Is it worth £1,800, $2,000? Well, that's down to you. Let me know what you make of this in the comments below, and if you do fancy buying one, I will leave links in the description. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.